Hey there! Ever wondered who really has the final say in the US government? Well, today we're going to tackle one of the most powerful and, honestly, one of the most interesting parts of the whole system, the judicial branch. Now, I know it can sound a little complicated, but stick with us. We're going to break it all down so it makes total sense.
Okay, so picture this. You've got Congress making all the laws, and you've got the president who's supposed to enforce them. But what happens when they don't agree on what a law actually means, or what the rules are? Who's the one that steps in and makes the final call? Yep, you guessed it, the courts. The judicial branch is basically the government's ultimate referee.
Exactly. And that brings us to their main job. So what do the courts do all day? Well, it really boils down to one huge, super important function, and it comes straight from the Constitution. They interpret the law.
Right. So while other folks are busy making and carrying out the laws, the courts are the ones who come in to settle arguments. They're the ones who have to answer the really tough questions like, hey, what does this law actually mean? And here's the biggest one of all. Does this law even follow the rules of the U.S. Constitution?
And that question, that leads us to probably the single most powerful tool in the entire U.S. government. Seriously, if you remember just one thing from this whole explainer, make it this one. Judicial review. It's kind of like the court's superpower.
So, what is this superpower? Well, judicial review is the court's ability to look at a law passed by Congress or even an action taken by the president and say, hold on a second, this breaks the rules of the Constitution. And if the Supreme Court says a law is unconstitutional, poof, it's gone, wiped off the books. I mean, talk about a huge check on the other two branches.
Okay, but here's the wild part. You'd think this incredible power would be written down right there in the Constitution, right? Nope, it's not. The Supreme Court actually gave this power to itself way back in 1803 in this super famous case called Marbury versus Madison. It was a seriously bold move that basically changed the game for American government forever.
So, that raises a really important question. If the courts have the power to overrule the president and Congress, what stops them from just becoming political players themselves? How do we know they're making fair calls? Well, the answer is pretty brilliant, and it all comes down to how the system was designed to keep them independent.
Okay, let's look at how they get the job in the first place. It's a two-step process, which is a check in itself. First, the president nominates a judge, but then the Senate has to vote to confirm them, so two branches have to agree. Right, but the real secret sauce for their independence is how they keep the job. Federal judges get a lifetime appointment, and that is so important. It means they can make the right call based on the law, not because they're worried about getting reelected or making a political party angry. They're insulated from all that pressure.
Okay, so let's zoom out for a second and look at the big picture. It's not just the Supreme Court, you know. The federal court system actually has three main levels.
Think of it like climbing a ladder. Most cases start at the bottom, in the U.S. district courts. That's where the trials happen. Now, if one side doesn't like the decision, they can appeal it and climb up to the next level, the U.S. Courts of Appeals. And then, at the very top of the ladder, the court of last resort is the U.S. Supreme Court. What they say goes.
Okay, so let's put all these pieces together. We've talked about judicial review, how judges get their jobs, those lifetime appointments. All of it fits together perfectly into this amazing idea you've probably heard of, checks and balances.
So, just to recap, what's the court's big check on everyone else? It's that superpower we talked about, judicial review. They can tell Congress, nope, that law is unconstitutional. And they can tell the president, sorry, that action violates the Constitution.
But it's not a one-way street. The courts aren't all powerful. The other branches have checks on them too. Remember, the president picks the judges, and the Senate has to approve them. And, though it's super rare, Congress can actually impeach and remove a judge from their job. It's all about making sure no one part of the government gets too powerful.
And that really leaves us with a pretty cool final thought, right? You have this branch that's powerful enough to tell a president no, but its members are chosen by that very same office. So what does that incredible balance tell you about the American system of government? It's all about that careful dance between giving power and limiting it.